You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and this is my discussion with one of the guitarists in Cradle of Filth, Richard Shaw. The reason for the conversation is to promote Cradle of Filth Australian tour, which is about to occur at the time of narrating this introduction. I'll just read out some dates quickly. Wednesday the 9th of May, they're playing in Canberra. Thursday the 10th, they're playing at the Triffid in Brisbane. Friday the 11th, they're playing in Melbourne. Saturday the 12th, they're playing in Sydney. And finally, Monday the 14th, they are playing Capital in Perth. Let's see what Richard has to say. Here we go. Hey, Richard, Andy Mackay-Smith calling for a chat. How are you?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm good, mate. You're keen, that's for sure. I got the message from John only a couple of hours ago that you guys were on route from wherever you were coming from and that you wanted to have a chat with media types when you landed, mate. So I congratulate you on your enthusiasm, to say the least.
Yeah, not a problem at all. Not a problem. Just had a couple of hours sleep. Thought I'd wake up and get straight on it before we have a look around the city.
Yeah, cool. Whereabouts have you come from? What country?
We just come from the Philippines, from Manila. I can't even speak. Manila.
How were those shows over there?
Absolutely amazing. Amazing. There's something about the Asian crowds that is pretty cool. I think they're just really passionate. They don't get that many bands like us come over all that often, so they just get really passionate about it. Whether you're playing a small club show or a big festival, they just seem well up for it.
We spend a lot of time in the Philippines because my wife is half Filipino, so we go over there with the mother's family, and we stay in the island of Cebu, which is smack bang in the middle. And when I was in Lapu-Lapu City there, bloody Angel Corpse, you know, that black death metal band from the States, they came through town.
Yeah.
I didn't get an opportunity to go and watch them, but it's something, because this is effectively what I do, indie journalism. It's something that I'm quite passionate about with Australian artists, to start branching out and reaching into the Asian market. And I mean, it's, you know, a lot of Australian bands do go over and lose a lot of money because the promoters are a bit dicey or what have you. But, you know, there are legitimate ones out there, like the ones that you guys obviously went through to play Manila. And it's just a matter of tapping into that market because, frankly, it's just on our bloody doorstep. Exactly.
It's it was what an 8-hour flight, which in the whole scheme of things isn't too bad.
It's nothing,
especially for the Australians. anything less than about 10 hours is pretty good for you guys, isn't it?
Oh, it's very rare for us. I mean, Asia's the only place you can go to where it's less than 10 hours. If you want to go to Europe, you know, UK, North America, you're looking at 18, 20 hours, or especially that bloody long haul flight now that I don't quote on how long it is, but from Perth directly to London now. Have you seen that?
Yeah, that's the one we're getting on the way back from San Jose. I've been told it's around 17, 18 hours. Yes. But I've got a feeling it will be longer than that.
Yeah, well, you'll be right, I think. I think they've kitted it out so you've got extra leg room and all the rest of it. You know, I mean, they understand.
Oh, I hope so.
You know, you're not bloody pigs or cattle, you know what I mean? You can't sort of be herded into something and be expected to just sort of sit still for that length of time.
Oh, yeah.
You know. So, mate, the tour, you finally made it here. What can we expect from some of the shows?
The shows, well, right now we pretty much feel like a well-oiled machine. We're getting to a point where we've done, including the UK tour that we did back in October and November, we're on course for probably 90 shows into this world tour, and we feel good, we feel positive. All the shows have been incredible. The fans have been great. The Australian fans are going to expect one hell of a set list, spanning pretty much Cradle's whole career. Obviously, we are pushing Cryptoriana, the new album, so there'll be a few songs from that. But at the same time, they go well with the old songs. Obviously, being 20 years of Cruelty and the Beast.
Yeah,
it's going to be a little bit of a tip of it. The hat to that as well, so they're going to expect some high energy shows that go across the whole back catalogue of Cradle of Filth. So I know it's been a while. I mean, this is mine and Ashok's first time here, because the last time Cradle were in Australia was 2013. We joined in February of 2014, and obviously we're still technically the new guys for the Australians. You know, we're first time
5-year new guys.
Exactly, it's been a long time, and we're 2 albums in with this lineup, and it's about time the Australians got that. So we're going to give them the money's worth, that's for sure.
It's like when Jason Newsted left Metallica in 2003. There were still people saying Metallica's new bass player left the band after 15 or 16 years or whatever been in the band.
Exactly. It's pretty crazy. It's crazy to think now, because Rob Trio has been the longest serving member of the band.
Yeah, that's right.
Crazy like 20, 30. He's been in the band 15 years now, and Jason was in the band 14.
I think you're right.
I believe so. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, no, that's right. Actually, I don't know what he and Kirk Hammett have been thinking lately. My opinion's only, of course, I know this one, of course, but feel free to echo my sentiments. But have you seen the performance that he and Kirk Hammett did in Denmark of "Take Me On" by Aha, and then they just did...
Oh yeah, in Oslo, wasn't it? Yeah, in Oslo, Norway. Yeah. I saw
Final
that.
Countdown.
Like, they've been doing that pretty much every show they've done something that's like local to whichever city they're in. Because I had tickets for the Birmingham UK show, but then I couldn't go because it was the first date of our world tour. So I was like, well, it's a good problem to have.
I'm going to say,
you're going to miss your favourite band of all time. It might as well, because you're starting a world tour. You know what I mean? If you told me that was the reason I was going to miss Metallica when I was 14, I'd be like, you're having a laugh, aren't you? But apparently they played like a Black Sabbath medley in Birmingham.
Of course.
Rob and Kirk did, so that would have been cool, but I couldn't see it, unfortunately.
Kirk, I think, is losing his chops, though. I mean, he's not as precise as a player like yourself or David Davidson out of Revocation. You know, he just has lost a little bit. I don't know what it is, mate, but he's listening to his live performance, and I've got to say, I saw them in 2010 when they came here, and it wasn't good between you and I. And I thought, these guys are they're almost like a spinning top that's spinning off its axis from time to time. You know, it's sort of just, who was I talking to? Just before you, I was speaking to Peter Targton from Hypocrisy and, you know, the big producer. And he wasn't saying the same thing, but yeah, I just don't know whether I could watch Metallica these days because I'm 40, right? So Black Album is the era that I sort of came through, but I didn't actually get into the Black Album. I went back and got into the thrash stuff. You know, the two albums, the two big albums there. And they're the two albums. I don't mean to sound like a grumpy old man about things, but I just feel like as though as a band, they're losing a little bit of their, what would you call it, feel? Now, the feel that goes into playing the music, and it feels like it might be a bit more of a job for them now. We disagree if you want, but...
Because it's one of those things, Metallica are my heroes, and yeah, granted, like, people slag off Lars and Kirk, and I totally understand it, but at the same time, how influential that band is, and people slag off Lars as a drummer, but it's like, how many people can air drum the whole of Sad But True? You know what I mean? You can't say that about many drummers, that people can air drum their fills. Like, people who don't play drums can air drum, like, pretty much the Black Album, and Kirk's solos are just so iconic. At least they were, like me. I do love the new album. I absolutely love it.
Is that right? But, okay. Yeah, I find it a struggle, to be honest with you. I had to review it, and yeah, it was hard. I ended up saying nice things about it because it's Metallica, but Jesus, it was hard to... I got to tell you, I didn't listen to it after the review cycle finished.
Oh, really? See, to me, I do love that album. It's almost like the first disc was amazing, and Spit Out the Bone, the last track on disc 2 was amazing. The rest of disc 2, I wasn't too much of a fan of. If they just made it like a 7-track album, it would have been stellar, I think. And those are the songs, weirdly enough, I feel like Kirk does sound pretty inspired. And then the pretty much all of disc 2, like the songs themselves, they just sounded a little bit laboured. But as far as Kirk's live performance goes, yeah, there have been some pretty heartbreaking moments over the years. But saying that, I've seen some shows where I'm like, Kirk's on it. He's absolutely amazing. And then I just think it's like one of those inconsistent live bands, but when you get them on a good show, oh my god. It's
you're right.
Definitely a memorable show, whereas some bands playing their best still aren't as good as Metallica will ever be, in my opinion, but don't know, they are my heroes. I can't slag them off too much.
It's quite funny, actually, just talking about your band. Just before we would get on the call, I thought I'd check out some of your videos on YouTube, because I know you're quite adept at being able to handle interviews, and especially the video interviews where I think it was the Association of Contemporary Music or one of the colleges you went through that you were talking to an audience about. But I flipped onto another video which I've got up here. It's from Thoman Music. I don't know whether you remember this discussion, which was published only recently, about a month ago. But one of the comments underneath is, I want to thank Paul Allender for leaving Cradle. Now we have two kick-ass guitar players who have renewed Cradle's energy and sound. And look, I've got to echo those sentiments as well. I think the commentator is quite right. And I think a lot of people agree with him. I'm not asking you to put shit on Paul at all because I know he's a great guitarist, but 31 likes on that comment. No down thumbs. Well, I don't know whether you can see down thumbs on YouTube these days because I'm not on it that often, but 31 likes on that one there. So I do think yourself and your partner in crime up there on the 6-string or 7-string, as it might be, you have brought renewed vigour to the album, to the band, because I'm an old fan. I got in the Cradle back on Dusk, and a really big fan of Stuart Anstis' guitar playing. Yeah, and that's, look, to be honest with you, I've checked out a metal for about 10, 15 years or so. I've only just sort of come back into it. So it's interesting to hear your playing, how it has revitalised it, because I'm just speaking completely frankly, and when I interviewed Danny, I didn't mention this, God help me, but I didn't like a lot of that stuff that's come out over the last 15 years, but this last record seems to have a lot more energy to it. So were you given a lot more reins to write on this album here, or is it still Danny's vehicle and you guys just come in and do your thing?
I think that's the impression a lot of people get, is that it's like Danny's kind of vision, and it is for a big part of it. But even when I came in to do Hammer of the Witches for the album before Cryptoriana, me and Ashrock had only been in the band about 6 months or so, probably not even that, and we were told, time to get writing, and being thrown into that kind of situation where you're like, right, well, what do the fans want? Me as like an old school fan, I was kind of more of a casual fan. My brother's a die-hard fan. Yeah. I was almost like sitting down with him going, what do you think Cradle need? And being general consensus I got on the kind of Cradle that I got into was the kind of 2-guitar attack kind of thing that was kind of missing from the previous albums.
Totally.
And it was one of those things with Hammer of the Witches. It was like, right, I've written albums with my other bands and in different styles of music, and being a session guy, it was kind of like I'm used to playing different styles. But how do I write? How do I fit into the Cradle sound? Trying to make it, I guess, for all of us really. Like how do we push Cradle further? But you can't. It was almost like this template that Cradle known for. But at the time, Hammer of the Witches, we were brought in. It was like 6 months in from filling in on a tour, and it felt good. We were basically given free rein, do whatever we want to do. But it was almost like you go to Martin, our drummer, who's almost like the quality control. And if he got excited about our ideas, we knew those ideas were going to make the album. And then basically we write the album musically, all of us collaborating, and then Danny will put in his 2 cents and go, well, I'm thinking of putting more vocal here. Can we just like double that length? Oh, I love that riff. Can we make that come back later? So he's really good at kind of those arrangements with us. And then when that's done, we basically leave him to enter his cave or wherever he goes to write the lyrics, and we have an album written. And it was pretty much the same process for Cryptoriana, the only difference being that instead of being a band for like 6 months trying to work with that kind of chemistry, we'd done a whole world tour.
Yes.
Come back, and it's like, right, now we've got this extra. We know how to push each other's buttons a little bit more instead of being like the new guys going, I'm not really sure about that, but we'll say yes to it. We don't want to rock the boat too much, whereas Cryptoriana, we knew which buttons to press to kind of push each other even further, every single member of the band.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I had a discussion about 6 months ago. It was the same week I had a chat with Danny, as fate would have it, with Stuart Anstis. I was the first journo that reached out to him, I think, in his words, in years, to actually have a chat to him. And we spoke for 4 hours, if you can believe it, about his history with the band, what he's done since, but just his take on the 2 albums that he's so well known for. Well, one album in particular, Cruelty and the Beast. So, look, that's an album that's gaining... in my view, like, I always thought it was iconic when it came out back in the day, so your brother probably feels the same way. But
he was the same.
Yeah, I mean, do you feel... with the re-releases coming out, is there something special around that album, do you think, that separates it from the other albums?
It's kind of hard to tell. It was almost like one of those albums where it's like kind of the planets align kind of albums. If you listen to Cradle's back catalogue up until that point, you could hear that trajectory. Like, I know it's kind of a weird thing to say, but you can hear... basically, I'm a huge Queen fan.
Sure.
And if you listen to the first Queen album and then get to Night of the Opera, where Bohemian Rhapsody is on that album, you can hear album by album them becoming more of Queen. And for me, Cruelty is that almost bell curve. It's like every album you go, yeah, we get it, and every album there was like this new ingredient being added that made them more Cradle and more unique. And I think almost like Cruelty became that peak where it was like, right, they've got everything absolutely spot on. The songs are there, the playing's there, the interest is there, the concept's there, the lyrics are there, all the performances are there. It's just one of those albums that I think is almost like the benchmark for Cradle.
Yeah.
Some people have different opinions on that because I kind of got into the band around Midian and Bittersweets. So I class Midian in there.
Is that right?
A lot of people class, a lot of people class Dusk. Like my brother's like a Dusk guy.
Yeah,
kind of where he got into him. But there's something almost universal with every Cradle fan, where every Cradle fan loves Cruelty. Everyone's got their kind of cherry picks their moments throughout the history. Like even people who got into band with, for example, Hammer of the Witches. They go back and listen to Cruelty, and that seems to still be the one that all Cradle fans can agree on. So there's just something about it. There's that magic that the other albums, don't get me wrong, they have their own magic, but there's just that, as I say, that planet aligning kind of moment with Cruelty.
Yeah, no, agreed. And look, it was interesting for a guitarist like you to come into the band now, because you're the sort of guitarist, I feel, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're the sort of bloke that could be as comfortable on stage with an artist like Janelle Monáe as you are with Cradle of Filth. So you're part of this evolving musician, if you like, where it's just about performing music. So what drew you to the band, given that you are so capable and you can pretty much play any genre of music?
Oh, that's very kind of you to say. I don't know what it was. I think it was the kind of theatricality of it. Like, I mean, when I was getting into the band when I was like 16, and you have that natural progression of like you find heavy music, you want to find the next heaviest thing, and you eventually do get to Cradle of Filth. It was just, I don't know why. I don't know if you've seen the Heavy Left-Handed Candid DVD. It was shot at Nottingham Rock City, which is my hometown.
Right. Yeah, no, I haven't seen it yet. Yeah.
So, right, and it was from the Midian tour, and I kind of went with my brother because it was his birthday. I was like, yeah, I'll go with you, someone to go with kind of thing, and a few of the mates went down. And that was like more my experience of Cradle of Filth, was like, here you go, you're going to see them live. I didn't hear them recorded before that, and I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. But it was more of a theatricalness, and I'd not really heard anything like it before. It was kind of the first time I even heard blast beats, other than probably, at the time, Slipknot's first album. But obviously you can't say Slipknot are a similar band to Cradle of Filth. But it was just the first time I was hearing a lot of those extreme metal stylings played right in front of me, especially. And it did make an impression on me as a guitarist, like the whole interweaving guitar line kind of thing. And not just you have a rhythm guitarist and a lead guitarist. This was like you have almost two lead guitar players, very rarely playing just regular power chords, and they're playing completely different things at the same time, and that really grabbed me. And it was almost like an Iron Maiden on speed.
I've always felt that. Well, I've always felt that about Cradle, actually, and I mentioned this to Stuart and Danny. It was like that era that we're talking about earlier, the Cradle era. That was a really shitty time for metal, if we all recall. Like there was, Sepultura had effectively broken up, gone their separate ways. They regrouped eventually with Derek, but heavy metal was not present at all in mainstream media or culture. It had gone completely underground, and Cradle and Strapping Young Lad, I felt, were the two highlights of that era in terms of albums that you could purchase them if you walked into the HMV or Virgin. Like as a regular punter off the street that didn't know where heavy metal record stores or independent record stores were, you could purchase them. So I've completely lost the point that I was going to make because my dog's bloody stalking beside me here and barking. So
right.
I forget what I was going to say. Sorry, it'll come back to me. But what's for you, mate? Being such a capable guitarist, and without asking you what your intentions are with the band, I mean, you're effectively starting out in your career, but you're a lifelong musician. But what do you think the future holds for you individually? Individually,
it's a very tough question, but we've all got our own things. Obviously, when the downtime happens with Cradle, we've all got our own projects, and it's always that especially in this day and age where it's like, right, we're tour's finished, the tour money's not going to last forever. I've got to find work and stuff. So I'm always playing guitar for musical theatre back home and teaching and stuff, and I can tend to carry on with that. But there is always that question of like, what can happen between Cradle tours? Could I do other bands? Could I do other things? Because I just love playing, and we're all the same. We all just love playing, and just because Cradle's got some downtime doesn't mean we're not going to do our own projects. And I think that's what the beauty of being in this band does for us. We get the time between tours to get that creative outlet out. We're all into different styles of music. I mean, obviously Danny's got Devilment. Daniel first got like his own band, Man Must Die, Fit to Work. Lindsay's got her own thing. Martin's got her own thing. And Ashok has got his own thing as well. So it's just one of those things where we like styles of music. We like to be creative and get it out. But also at the same time, there's that crazy niggling thing that unfortunately it's not the heyday of the music industry anymore. We can't. The tour money doesn't last forever, and the royalties aren't what they were. So there is that pressure of going, well, whatever we do, we need to find something that brings the money in at the same time. In terms of individual things, that's the kind of plan for me on the horizon. Go back to the teaching and the musical theatre work, go back to lecturing. But if other offers come up for things between Cradle tours, I'll gladly take them. But Cradle is the priority, and that's what it is. We'll always, Cradle feels like home base. It's like you can go off, do your thing, and then as soon as...
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it, isn't it?
We can get back into it, get re-energized, and we're always writing in our downtime. So Cradle's always in the back of our minds going, we know this is home. Yeah,
that's the breadwinner, for lack of a better description. That's the platform, and you just, because you're a guitarist and you're a musician, you can engage in all these other things because that's what you do. That's what you've been put on this earth to do.
Yeah, that's the way I see it. It's just I'm not very good at anything else. So as long as I'm playing guitar, I'm happy. Like, I've taken on some gigs that don't pay well at all, but they've been super rewarding. And I just love playing, and sometimes I can run myself ragged taking on gigs and doing things back home between Cradle tours. But I'm happy. I'm playing guitar. I can't really complain.
I remembered what I was going to say before as well. During that, that 1995 to 1999, which was definitely metal's commercial low tide, if you like, the lowest tide that I think we've ever had for the genre. I thought Cradle were the next Iron Maiden. I honestly did, because Iron Maiden, of course, had Blaze Bayley in the band and were God knows what was going on there, to be honest with you. It was Virtual 11 when that came out. A lot of people were scratching their heads on that one there. And but I honestly thought Cradle were the next in line to take over that mantle as the biggest heavy metal band in the world. And I know you mentioned that you got into Midian, but I just thought a lot of the momentum stopped. As an old fan, I listened to the album Midian, and it just sounded flat compared to even what they did on the EP, the From the Cradle to Enslave EP. And I was thinking, geez, what happened? But a lot of that was made when I spoke to Stuart and talked to him about his exit from the band. A lot of it made sense because, of course, the different writers that then come in. There's different perspective on I say Danny's vision, but I don't understand it's a communal thing. But yeah, I just wish the band had kept that ascendancy going. But I guess it's impossible because there weren't the same personnel around. By that stage, Barker had left, Les Smith had left, and Stewart had stepped out. So you effectively had not a brand new band, but three of the 5 or 6 members were brand new coming in, so of course the album was going to sound different. Sorry, I know it's a point out of context now since I've remembered it from 5 minutes ago, but I suppose my overall point is that I just feel like Cradle have got a new lease on life since yourself and the other guitarists have come in. So I do echo this again, the sentiments that the YouTube commentator had, and it's nice to see because I think that Cradle ran the risk, I think, for a while there of becoming a legacy band, just touring and playing the older hits. But I think now that with you guys coming in and with Cryptoriana being a strong album, it revitalises the band in the same way, really, that Iron Maiden enjoyed a second or third lease of life when Bruce came back in.
But that's the way it feels. I mean, it feels good in Cradle world right now. Obviously, it's hard for me to tell you any differently because I wasn't there for the previous albums before I joined, or I can only tell you really what's been going on in the last 4 years. But you can tell from the fan reaction, and even our crew and management who've worked with the band so long, they've mentioned it does seem like a new lease of life. And sometimes having fresh blood isn't a bad thing. It was almost like that injection of having 2 new guitarists and getting Daniel involved more in the writing, getting Lindsay involved in the writing. It's almost like what the band needed at that time. And as I say, it's nothing against previous lineups, but like you say, when the line changing pretty much every album, you almost don't get that time for the chemistry to blossom. It's almost like you're getting an album out of like new guys going, right, how can we make this work? And you could have almost said the same thing about Hammer of the Witches. Who knows how long me and Ashok could have been in the band after Hammer of the Witches? We didn't know at the time, but it's like we'd been in the band like 6 months, and it could have been another album with a different lineup. You never know, but thankfully that wasn't the case because we love being in this band. So it's just the way it seems to be. Me and Ashok are very drawn to that. And Daniel, as writers, were very much drawn to that 2-guitar attack, and we just felt like it needed to come back into the Cradle thing a little bit more. It's kind of what made Cradle in my eyes, and if you stray too far away from it, there's nothing wrong with straying far from it, but Cradle had their sound. They're one of those bands. When people think of Cradle, they think of almost like this recipe of heavy metal that works for them, and I think kind of Cradle, personally, in my opinion, Cradle strayed a little bit too far from that. So
no, agreed. Agreed, totally,
Like bringing in the ingredients from the past without having to rely too heavily on them. And I think that's where Hammer of the Witches and Cryptoriana hit the nail on the head. So we're excited about the next album, seeing where it's going to go. But we need to get right in that first. And we know we need to push it further ourselves. We don't want to rest on our laurels and just go, let's just use that template that we know works. It's like we do want to push it further ourselves as well to feel creatively satisfied.
Yeah, agreed. Well, mate, that's it for me. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and that was my conversation with the excellent guitarist in Cradle of Filth. His name is Richard Shaw. Thank you so much for listening.